We do have to have this up as it is for IEM, but no. It's a best of 3. Spawning up in the top right. He's the young gun. Recently joined his new team, Infinity Gaming. It's Future. Future going to be taking on one of the oldest, greatest Terrans. Recently finished up in the army. Seems to be playing a bit of Starcraft. It's Bomber. All right. Looks like we are indeed playing on Central. So, of course, some players are going to be playing with a bit of time zone disadvantages and stuff. So this is like, the North American qualifier is the best shot. But players from all over the world get in on different qualifiers. But we got ourselves a TvT. It's going to be interesting. I was honestly a little bit surprised when I saw Bomber was coming out for this qualifier. Based on the fact that, I mean, he's just been streaming somewhat casually, but he's been playing a fair bit apparently, and he's back up to 6.1, 6.2k MMR. That's around levels of guys like MC. Fantasy is around 6.2, 6.3, so it's possible that Bomber can knock out like one of the North American favorites here. Of course, we definitely cannot sleep on Future. I mean, this is actually such an exciting match, guys, because just Bomber versus Future. This is not something that you get every day. I don't think you're going to get these two guys to come out to the same online cup. It's got to be something big. It's got to be the IEM qualifiers. As far as the builds go, pretty respectful coming out of both these guys. Bomber has really cut gas. He went for double gas, get up the fast factory, but then he's just got 2 SCVs and gas, so really been focusing on that mineral economy, likely getting up a CC. So this is a bit of a safer expand build from the look of things. Whereas Future, on the other hand, has been mining just a little bit more gas. That's the main variation here, but looks like he'll be starting up his own CC. So more or less the same things here and there. Is there a player list anywhere I'm seeing in chat, guys? You can use that ! bracket command. Reaper out for Bomber. Both these guys just making Reapers and Hellions. It's going to be interesting, the micro battle that'll go on. Of course, micro can be a bit tough if you do have the ping. But of course, I mean, I think Bomber might have even played like a Gopher SC2, so getting used to the ping and whatever. But all right, Bomber camping at the top of his ramp. Future's going to try and break up here, but Bomber is more than ready. Future's diving up anyway. Looks like Bomber maybe getting the worst end of this fight regardless. Future dove up here. One Hellion being forced to run away from the one Reaper. Is Bomber going to be able to take it out? Oh, it's going to be close. Who's going to... Oh, looks like Future's Reaper does win out there. 4 health. That's good for Future. So, I mean, he took a good trade there at the start. One Reaper up. Nicely done. Meanwhile, Bomber on his side of the map literally has nothing. So Future deciding to be a bit more passive, not being aware. Because for all he knows, Bomber could have had another Hellion on the way. Bomber could have had another Reaper on the way. But now that book did buy Bomber time to get up his command center. He's going to have a Cyclone out, which Cyclones really do shut down the party of the sort of Reaper and Hellion shenanigans. Now this Cyclone may actually be able to get down here, and if it locks onto one of these units, it can be very huge. Cyclone gets the lock on that. Hellion going to be in trouble. Bomber just chasing that right down. Cyclone wants to get one more of those Reapers, but doesn't quite. And now if we look at the units lost, Bomber has lost 1 extra SCV compared to Future. Bomber, though, in typical Bomber fashion, going for a fast third command center. For those of you guys that don't know, he was a player who liked to get up his 3 CCs and play from there. Now, we'll see how the rest of this game's going to go. Bomber has not repaired up his Cyclone, though, and this is a little bit concerning because Future's coming on in here, and Bomber's Cyclone's going to be a little bit exposed, and SCV is now going to be repairing it, but if Future gets the first lock on, and he does, Bomber's Cyclone's in trouble, and this means that Bomber in himself could be in a lot of trouble, doesn't quite get the Reaper, and what does he have? Bomber, he's just making a few Marines, and he's got to deal with the Cyclone. The Cyclone actually pretty low on health, though. SCVs are trying to chase it down, but Bomber is taking losses here. There's no doubt about that. So Future seeing an opportunity and going for it. He's one of these younger players, and, and I'm not being like stereotypical with StarCraft 2. The younger players in StarCraft tend to be very, very aggressive, and Future is no exception to that. Of course, it's not really a given, but no, Future is a very aggressive young Terran. Like, he will go for opportunities that some players would say pass up on. We're seeing the 3rd CC on location from Future. He knows he killed off his opponent's Cyclone, so he's got that mobility. Bomber's 3rd CC has been quicker, so both these guys are macroing up. Bomber taking a bit of a beating, but his third CC is faster, but Futures is on location. Make of that what you will. Now, so yeah, both these guys are macroing up. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Biotank versus Biotank. These guys are both very mobile, very aggressive players. Future looks like he's floating over to be able to start his stim pack. Where is Bomber's at? Bomber maybe will float over on this starport once that's done or something. Double eBay's on the way for both these players. So while the openings have been a bit chaotic, these builds are looking pretty darn similar. There we go, Bomber floating that over. And so these guys, yeah, they're playing very, very similar styles. Double Raven is out for Bomber, double Raven out for Future. 2 tanks, pretty equal Marine count. Future's coming forward with his units here. Once again, he's being the aggressor. Despite them having nearly identical things, he's going to be the player who's looking for some damage. Of course, these players have to, it's so careful. TvT can be so volatile. Looks like a Reaper dove on in here, but a Viking dealt with it. Bomber trying to float over his third CC. Future's going to be able to deny this for a little bit. It looks like Bomber drops an auto turret. Tanks deal with that, though, so it doesn't get too much down. A bit of energy being used up, and Bomber losing a few more SCVs, so it's looking pretty good for Future. Another SCV almost rallying forward. Bomber's got to look for something. Now, Future's tanks, they are unsieging. Looks like he may be retreating or may just be pulling back a little bit. Bomber out on the map. He's got a superior Viking count, so he does have that air control. But Bomber's actually just going out. We're seeing lots of spells being used on both fronts. Auto turrets being dropped all over the place. Vikings working away on each other, but Bomber is retreating because Future has the superior number. And Future lost a Raven there. Or Bomber lost a Raven, pardon me. Future did not. Bomber still has the superior air count, though, and that's going to work wonders for him. However, Future pulling back his air units to make sure they're not in trouble. And suddenly Future, he's mining on a third base already. His is very saturated. Bomber down on SCVs, contained on 2 bases. And this contain could pretty much be for the rest of the game here, because Bomber is in a lot of trouble. There's no doubt about that. 3 tanks are very tough to break when you're working with similar stuff. That's the power of the siege tank. And unless Bomber, say, gets air control and maybe up like, maybe he gets up like a Liberator or something, he's not going to be able to break this, but he is continuing on with his Viking production. It's currently 7-4, so he's got that going for him, which is, well, you know, nice. Bomber once again trying to float over his third CC, but this is actually already injured. Bomber could just be losing his third CC. He's actually being forced to go for it right now. Tanks are moving forward. Ravens engaging each other, but Bomber's third CC is going to go down, and this is going to spell disaster for the old Terran here. Tanks are getting shots off on Futures thanks to the superior range. Bomber looks like he's going to clean up a fair bit, but he's going to be in trouble now. He lost his third CC. I think he pretty much just has to go for it to try and kill Future. His Vikings can land to try and pick off some of the tanks here. Gets another one. So Bomber taking an army supply lead, but the pressure is on him to get something done, and Future knows it. What does Future have back at home? Bomber, the main concern for Future, though, is that Future lost his tank count, and Bomber still has the superior Viking count. So this is going to allow Bomber to push in and bully Future. Now, Bomber, though, he has cut Viking production, so Future may be able to equal up on that. And if he does sort of win out in the air control fight, he can shut down Bomber's push. And if he shuts down Bomber's push, it's fair to say that Future probably has this game, just because of the fact that he killed Bomber's third, unless Bomber gets some good damage done. Players are engaging each other now. Bomber's Vikings are being chased down by Marines, but none of his tanks were sieged. Both these players have stim, but it looks like Future's upgrades were a little bit quicker. Bomber unsieges his tanks and wants to move forward, but he lost his air control, so he now has to basically just try and crash through these tanks if he wants to go for it. Either that or he has to pull back and play more passive. So Future just being able to pick off those Vikings, he knows he no longer has to worry about that air control, which is absolutely huge. He's already starting up 2 Liberators, which is massive for him. And once he has those, he'll be able to bully Bomber off these siege tanks. Bomber unsieging, looks like he's deciding to go home. Loading up some medivacs, going to be looking for, or a medivac looking for a drop, but Future even sent some of his Vikings to the north here. He's looking pretty firm right now. I'm not sure Bomber's going to be able to get anything done. In Future, even anticipating this drop, moving the rest of his Vikings north. Bomber's got to turn this medivac around, but he's not going to be able to in time. Loses a fair share of units there. And now we're going to start to see, I think we'll be seeing Future start to surge ahead because he's got the third CC mining. The income inequality here is huge. What did I press to make that come up? All right, look at that. Learning new things every day. Bomber has secured up his third base, so the economies aren't going to be too different now. The army supply is not too different. Future's just got a little bit of an edge pretty much on every front, it seems. But, I mean, Bomber, the longer this game goes, the less that massive third CC kill is going to matter. And it's TvT, so it really does come down to that one engagement, more or less. Siege tanks getting set on up. It's very important not to let your opponent get the jump on you, and part of that comes from positioning out there as opposed to just staying back at your base defensively. Aggressive posturing really helps keep the heat off you. Both these players going for a 4th CC around similar timing, so this game, this could go a lot longer. Like, I thought Bomber's hand was really going to be forced and that he'd maybe go for it, but no. Bomber is a very mature player, so just pulling back now. Future's moving out on the map, though. Bomber has tanks on the high ground. Future could be in trouble if he walks through this. Eating some tank shots already, loses one of his own tanks. That's a nice pick off there for Bomber, and so he had a good position. Now, Future, though, he does have the air control, he does have Liberators, and Bomber does not. He's not even begun to contest that, so that's a lead Future has, and this tank is not unsieging, so that tank is done for. So Future getting payback there. Both these players going to have 2-2 in just a second. So equal upgrades. Bomber wants to go for a fight. He's moving his tanks forward. This could be a little bit aggressive here. He's getting his tank sieged up on the high ground, which is very good for him. But, looks like Future's just going to be able to crash through, and Bomber could be in trouble. This sudden fight. Reinforcements for Bomber are streaming in, but all of his tanks have been cleaned out pretty much. He's cleaning out a lot of the Vikings for Future, but he's still not trying to contest the air, so Bomber bleeds off a lot of supply there. Future with a nice engagement. Bomber just, maybe he felt his hand was forced a little bit when you're dealing with Liberators and an opponent with superior air. It's pretty much do or die. And Bomber just not in a great spot here. He's now picks off his siege tank, retreats, but eats a fair few shots. He really wants to prevent Future from getting his tank sieged up on one of his bases. Planetary on the way. Future securing up his 4th base. Bomber starts his +3 attack. Future has not begun that, but Bomber is still far down on supply. Liberator is going to be able to siege up on Bomber's tanks. These need to be on the siege, but in fact, they're actually just going to go down. Bomber taking a pretty big beating here, losing these tanks. He may just have to lift off this 4th base and abandon it, but if you abandon the space, what do you do as Bomber? Because you're being choked out, you're down on supply, you don't have air control, and that spells disaster for a Terran player. So Bomber gonna need a very good engagement. He's actually just pulling the SCVs. He knows he needs to break this tank sieging up. Might have been a little bit too far back, but a lot of bios stepping forward for Bomber into these tanks. A pretty good concave working away on these tanks. The Marines are stepping forward. He's cleaned up a fair few of the tanks, working away on the Vikings now. But does he have enough to hold on? Bomber lost 18 SCVs in that defense, and tanks are still sieged up on his planetary. It may just be a slow death. He's now rolling forward with his own tanks. Wants to get sieged up, needs to break this position, and his Marines are stepping forward, picks off another of his opponent's tanks. His tank finishes off another. If he can get the first shot up in this tank-v-tank fight, he can maybe clean this out. Somehow Bomber is doing it for now. However, Future not wasting any time, coming in a ton of Marines, knowing that the 3rd base is vulnerable. Bomber needs to pull these SCVs, but Future intercepting them. There's nowhere for them to run, really. These Marines are just going to start slaughtering them, and that is a huge part of Bomber's economy. GG. Future takes the 1-0 lead. North America up in the North American qualifier. What a first game, guys. What a first game. So, we'll find out what the next map is, then we'll load on into that as soon as possible, but that is an awesome game. Bomber was really playing from behind from that one quick move that Future pulled. Just Future with his aggression. Very good in modern TvT, there's no doubt about that. Now, of course, a lot of good players are playing in this qualifier, though, so this is just the first match. It's the best of 3. The winner of this will move on to play... Hold on, let me see if I can figure that out. The winner of this... Hold on. It's actually hard to find things in this bracket. You can't control F for it. Trying to find it. Who will I play versus next? We're just getting into the next lobby anyway, so it's fine for me to look at this. Do. Ah, there we go. The winner will play Trap or Arth. And Arth is an unknown Brazilian player, so my money is on the winner will play Trap. So that'll be a good match, Future versus Trap. I mean, Trap's a very, very good Protoss player. Probably the most underrated Protoss player in the world, in my opinion. So, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, we're loading into the next game. Thanks so much to you guys for tuning into my coverage of this. Bomber versus Future. Alright, it's a best of 3. The young gun, spawning up in the top left, got himself a 1-0 lead already. It's Future, also representing Infinity Gaming. Moving out with a cheeky SCV already. Spawning down the bottom right-hand side of the map, it's Bomber. So Future going out with a proxy, and he'll say, alright Bomber, how up to date are you on the meta? Now Bomber opened double gas in that last game, and you really gotta respect the double gas, because double gas is pretty much what you need to do in order to shut down a Reaper rush. Like, your factory's just out so much quicker. Now does Bomber go for a double gas in this game? He's moving out with an SCV. He could be scouting out. And it looks like he's going to be doing just that. So that may give him the heads up that he needs. The question is, does he throw up the extra gas, or is he just going for a single gas expand? And that's where it becomes very rough to hold this rush. SCV moving out on the map. But if we look at it, I mean, by the time the SCV gets there, the 2 Reapers are going to be on the way. And Bomber just going for the single gas, so this is where it can become very tough. You got to do all the right things to defend this rush. SCV gets on in for Bomber. He's going to know that he's going to be in trouble. What's he doing back at home? This is where you pretty much immediately throw up a bunker. He starts a Marine, starts up his factory. However, that's a little bit exposed, dare I say, to a Reaper that's going to be on the way. There's a bunker starting, I think. Maybe tucking that in a little bit more, but we'll see. That first Marine's going to have to get out, want to stay on top of that cliff. Bomber may need to pre-pull a few SCVs to get ready for this. If he's very confident that this is coming, going to need to start another Marine as well. Now, yeah, here comes in that first SCV for Future. Gonna spot what's going on, get sent away. Bomber's got to get ready for this. His bunker may actually just finish up in time. I mean, Future's barracks were a fair bit away. If this Marine gets in this bunker, that's a good start. And it does. So suddenly Future's already forced back. SCV dies. Bomber can now just bounce around this bunker. Is this just going to go perfectly for Bomber? SCV looking around for the 2 barracks. Bomber's got to be very careful about this. He's got a Hellion on the way, though, and Hellions are a big part of defending this. He's even got 2 SCVs to buffer up at the front. That's actually such a precise amount to shut this down, and as the Marine count grows, Future's not going to be able to get too much done. It looks like Bomber's poor SCV has been scouting out, but... Ah, there we go. He actually did see it. Pardon me. 1 barracks will now fly into the main base of Bomber. Future going to try and break the front, but not able to. There's a Hellion and Marines out. Future, though, back at home. He's starting to transition. So the result of this is Bomber has a faster CC on the way. He's got a faster factory, and he's up a few SCVs. So a very good hold for Bomber already. I was just a little bit concerned because single gas generally can be a little bit rough during this, but that SCV scout doing it just properly. And I mean, Kairos Junction, it's debatably not the best map for a Reaper rush. Barracks is flying over Bomber's base. I mean, he's got 2 Hellions out. He's going to have 3 soon. I'd like to see all the Marines start working away on this. I think Future was thinking of stealing that add-on. Marines working away in this barracks, wants to shut down that scouting of Future as quick as possible. Future does know everything that's on the way, which is a perk for him, but he still has to react to it. If we look at Future, he's even going to have out a faster Cyclone than Bomber. He starts his CC on the low ground as well. If you're the aggressive player, if you're behind in the economy, a great way to catch up is that CC on location. So I mean, it's not like Future committed to a ton of Reapers. He made 3 and then stopped. So it's not that big of a deal, really. Reaper's now coming in for Future with his Cyclone, thinking he can bully him. I mean, it's 3 Reapers versus 3 Hellions and a Cyclone as far as mobile units really go. Bomber getting out a Viking, a Siege Tank. Whereas a Raven and Cloak on the way here for Future. Bomber scans, sees the Cloak. We'll see if that gets canceled or not. But look at this, a third CC on the way for Bomber. This guy is not afraid of the macro game, which you really have to give someone in TvT, because in a matchup that's so filled with aggression, throwing down that third CC can be a death sentence at times. But Bomber, very confident, and he seems to be very precise in his defense and everything too, as far as dealing with these Reapers went, so doing well in that regard. Stim on the way for Future already. Future's going to be 2 basing it, whereas Bomber's going for the 3. So as a result, Future's tech is going to be quicker as far as Stim goes. He's even getting up in eBay probably for a potential turret or +1, as he can't rule out there being a Banshee. Bomber, on the other hand, going to have the much superior economy, thanks to this third command center that'll be getting up. But the question is Future going to be able to do anything before Bomber can really utilize this? Siege tanks are out on the front of Future, so Bomber's not going to be able to push in here with his Hellions and Cyclone. Really, tank fires away. Those units have to back on out. And Future, he probably is going to be wanting to hit a 2-base tank push, getting a reactor, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see 2 Vikings. But Bomber scans, so that's very important for him to identify this. He's going to know that his Stim, no matter what, will be later than that of Future's. Reaper getting pushed away. Bomber's going double eBay even before his extra barracks and before he even starts his Stim. That is so greedy in the face of a 2-base play. That has me a little bit concerned for him, because Stim Marines versus non-Stimmed Marines makes a world of difference, guys. That barracks finally floating over to see Stim, but Future's going to know that he's going to have a massive amount of time. He's going to have about almost a 2-minute lead on the Stim, which is massive as far as trying to make something happen comes. However, I mean, the Marines won't have combat shield, but they probably will have +1. It really will come down to whether Future can get a good angle or not. And Bomber, he does have the Raven. He does have the superior Raven count. He's even got out the Viking, which will help shut down plays like this. Bomber just needs to be very out there on the map as far as identifying any aggression, and we are seeing a beautiful spread on units here. Hellion to the north, Cyclone to the center, and another Hellion to the left, just to spot what angle Future is coming in, because it is so important to know which direction the attack is coming in. And the attack is coming in, there's no doubt about that. The question is Bomber going to be able to hold on for his own Stim, for his own production to kick in? Future really is committing to this. He's just been producing units non-stop. Army supply, not that different, but of course there's going to be the +1, there's going to be the Stim. Now, can Bomber hold on? He's starting up a sensor tower. He's got a decent siege tank count. He's got 4 on the front lines, so 5 to 4 in total. Future's going to be looking for an angle, though. He's got 2 medivacs, so he may be planning on dropping into Bomber. With the Vikings and Ravens, though, he should be able to shut it down. Future's planning another drop, likely heading towards the natural, that I had to take a guess about that. And for now, he's just camping out, though. Future knows he's not going to be able to break this. Bomber's just got to be prepared. He's got 2 turrets at the natural, which will help shut this down. But of course, he's still not going to have a Stim in time for this drop. So this drop could actually be what gets all the damage done here for Future. It could really pull Bomber out of position, and Bomber has nothing. He doesn't have a tank at that natural base or anything. Future's coming on in. There's a turret set up. There's another turret. Will he back on out? Future looks like he's going to commit. One of the medivacs goes down. It wasn't the full one. Does the other one go down? Yes, it does. So only about 5 Marines managed to get out. That already makes things a lot better for Bomber, and Future's just committed on in here at the 3rd base. Vikings working away in this. Ravens can now drop their spells. Interference Matrix going down. All those tanks are disabled, and yeah, Bomber ties it up. It's 1-1. Very well done by Bomber. Just like that, he just held on. Future decided to commit to that. Maybe not wanting to go into a macro game. That was his choice, but suddenly we're looking at a tied series, and the person who drops the next map is out of this qualifier. They'll have to come back for qualifier number 2. And guys, keep in mind, this is basically a qualifier for a qualifier. The 8 people that qualify from the North American qualifier are going to be playing versus the 8 invited people. So you're basically playing to get into another qualifier, which will have 3 slots. So out of like 132 people, only 3 will end up qualifying, getting that paid ticket to IEM. Thanks so much to everyone for tuning in, though. I'm really excited for this, guys. Like, there's so much more going on in this qualifier. Make sure to be checking out that bracket. LaughNgamez advances over Kawhi Rice. Hero advances over Mechanics. TY over Disc. So Hero versus TY. Maru is in this qualifier. I didn't see that. Oh boy. Maru beats H-Jax. Fantasy beats Voidsham. So the Korean players are advancing, guys. There's just a little bit of surprise about that. There's no surprise, but anyway. Maybe Future will be the first to slay one of the Korean invaders on the North American qualifier. Spawning in the left-hand side of the map, it's Infinity Gaming's Future. The young gun, probably one of the most most promising players in the North American scene currently. And the old boy, it's Bomber. Bomber being able to keep this series tied up really shows how well he's doing it coming back already, just because he hasn't been back or playing hard, it seems. But, I mean, eventually you just reach a skill cap in StarCraft 2, in which I think it's somewhat like riding a bike. I don't think it can be completely attributed because you do fall off eventually, but some of your residual skill is still there. Future moving out for a scout. No proxy barracks. Keep in mind, Future tried to proxy Bomber out there, tried to take a quick 2-0, but Bomber prepared for that. He scouted. And now we're on a much larger map. Both these guys are SCV scouting this game, by the way. Future's SCV getting in there. Bomber's SCV getting in there. No double gas just yet, so both these guys looks like they're probably just going for a standard old Reaper expand. And if you're going to do that, Cerulean Fall, probably the map, because it's such a large map. Future being a nuisance here with his SCV. Bomber forced to bring 2 down to try and get this command center up. And Future still being a pain. Bomber not being as much of a pain. Where's Bomber scouting SCV? Did that go home already? Yeah, there we go. It's on its way home. Already was sent out. Oh, man. Look at this. Future has to change his SCV's direction because Bomber's hunting for it. Oh, my God. Is Bomber going to get it? Oh, Bomber gets the SCV of Future. Oh, my God. He knew Future would change direction, too. What a menace. And now he goes and hides from the Reaper of Future, who's without a doubt looking for it. Now, we're seeing Bomber. He's got his Reaper on the high ground, but Future's going to do this sort of trick here in which his SCV is going to buffer the first shot, and this could actually make things very dire for Bomber. Bomber's Reaper gets a shot off, throws a grenade, but he's actually being chased back now. I think Bomber's going to have to pull an SCV or 2 in order to save this. But yeah, his command center is going to be delayed, and suddenly losing an SCV is definitely worth this for Future. Bomber's Reaper has to retreat, heal on up. His factory could even be in trouble. Bomber's forced to pull a few SCVs off the line, needs to get that command center building, loses 2 SCVs. And okay, Bomber, with his SCV that was injured out on the map, he's building a starport out there because why not? But no, that was a nice move for Future. We've seen 2 SCVs die on each front, but the main difference is the command center timing. Bomber's is not yet done. Future's is finishing up, so taking a slight lead. Very nicely done. Helion's now on the way out for Bomber. It looks like he's getting out a Medivac out of this proxy starport. Future producing just 1 Helion. So if Bomber moves out with his, he can overwhelm this, assuming he runs on into it. And I imagine he will be running out. SCV runs on by that Reaper. Gotta be careful. Bomber sees that, though, and he's now going to be pursuing this Future preemptive grenade, though. Now we're seeing Bomber's Helions are moving out. Future diving in with his Hellion and his Reaper, though, and suddenly there's not much back at home for Bomber to defend this. He's got his 1 Reaper, but I think some SCVs are going to need to be pulled into the front lines. And now this is the question. Is Bomber's drop going to get anything done? Future currently wildly out of position, though. Future had his units parked at the front of the ramp, but now these Hellions are going to be getting into the main base, and Future knows the timing, so he knows, okay, those Hellions, they're not hitting my front, so he's got to be ready. Hellions are lining up these Marines. Looks like Bomber's just going to engage this, start working down some SCVs. How many can he get, though? Future pulls the SCVs off the line. Hellions are getting some shots off. Bomber lifts them up, though, to get him to safety. We'll see if he unloads this or just tries to get on out. That Raven can disable this. There's an auto turret going down. Future using that. Going to be able to kill off that medivac, it looks like, and he does. So that is fantastic for him. And so this game's going well for Future. If we look at it, on Bomber's side of the map, he killed a few more SCVs. Bomber's macro was sort of messed up a little bit more. Bomber is making a Liberator to continue on their harassment. That's what you got to do when you've got a proxy starport out there. But Future, he's getting ready for this, getting a Cyclone into position. And look at this Raven flying over. Gonna find this. And now a whack load of Marines are moving out. Bomber's not gonna have a starport. He's down on SCVs. We're seeing, okay, Bomber, though, getting Magfield Accelerator. This is interesting. How many Cyclones does he have? He's just got the one Cyclone, but maybe just wants to win that fight. The Liberator escaped. The Cyclone started working on the Raven, which is a nice bit of damage on it. But the starport's going to go down. There's no doubt about that. That Liberator needs to move on out of position, though. Bomber can't have that hanging around. Oh, okay, he reacts to that just in time. Now, Bomber's moving out with his own squad of Marines. Wants to get the injured ones of Future. He's actually trying to save his starport, but we have some lag here. Uh-oh. All right, guys. We may have to resume from replay here. Okay, so whereabouts were we at? Future's Marines were chasing at starport. Bombers were out on the way, though. How many we're looking at? We've got 8 or 9 to 8. However, Future has to deal with a Cyclone too, so Future could have overextended a little bit here. Bomber, of course, going to want to take this fight. Future, I think, going to be taking the losing end of this. The Cyclone needs to stay alive for Bomber. He can't afford to lose that. And it looks like he will end up taking the better fight there, so a bit of a consolation prize for losing his starport. But he does have to rebuild that. Bomber, okay, he's pulling a bit of a Future here. One behind, build your third on location. Of course, Future is not aware of what Bomber's intentions are, so I really like this choice. Now Bomber, though, interestingly enough, went for that Magfield Accelerator, which really is an interesting choice. I mean, it absolutely annihilates anything that it runs on into. Future's gone for 3 Ravens, though, which are a very, very powerful tool. So we'll see what our Bomber's Cyclone is going to be able to get done. For now, though, I mean, things should be pretty darn equal. Timings on Stim equal. Engineering base, pretty equal. Or actually, Future does not have his started yet. So Bomber's tech is a little bit ahead, but he's behind a little bit on upgrades. The Cyclones for Future are hanging out, trying to grab anything up. They almost get a tank. However, they do have to retreat because they're injured. Future was looking to push on out on the map, and we'll see if he's actually going to try and bully Bomber here. Army supply Bomber is down. It's 1 tank to 4, and with all the Raven support, Bomber could be in trouble as Cyclones are now coming home. They do need to be repaired. The Liberator will also help out greatly. However, with all these Vikings and Ravens, Bomber could be in a spot of bother. He's unsieging, he's repairing his Cyclones. Liberator just gets disabled, and suddenly Future's pushing on in. Bomber's got to do something about this. The Cyclones, but, I mean, it looks like Future's just going to be able to get the lock on Bomber, and this could just be game-ending here. Bomber knows that he's in a world of trouble right now, and suddenly, with all these tanks sieged up below him, Bomber's going to be taking losses, there's no doubt about that. He's got to try and inch forward or get something done, but this could just be a quick win for Future. He's unsieging his tanks, is repositioning them. Bomber, he's just going to be getting choked on out, though. He can't contest the air, loses a tank to the tanks, and there's still lots of energy here, and Future's just reinforcing. Okay, I was saying this was pretty darn equal, but Future, with a nice timing with his air control. Cyclone locks onto a Raven. If he gets that, that would be absolutely huge. Disables it, though, keeps that alive. Very important. A tank doesn't actually go down, which is massive for Future, and look at that, just dropping auto turrets. Now Bomber is in a lot of trouble, lots of energy being spent, and Future's even building up bunkers. I think Future could be sending the old Korean Terran packing now. Bomber with his stim, gonna try and break this position. Guns down the Vikings. However, all these tanks are still down on the low ground. His army is just annihilated. Looks like Bomber is going to be done for. Future 2-1s, the old Korean Terran. And all right, guys, so we'll try and find out what the next game is going to be.